The mother of the so-called affluenza teenager, Ethan Couch, she's out of jail, Ms. Tanya. She left the Tarrant County lockup this morning, and she has a brand new accessory. It's kind of like a bracelet, but it's for your ankle, and it's better known as an ankle monitor. Her son, Ethan, now notorious because he got probation for drunk driving, a crash that killed 4 people back in 2013. Well, prosecutors say that Tanya, his mom, helped him to slip out of the country all the way to Mexico last month. All of that to avoid a probationary hearing and potentially some jail time. Tanya Couch was being held on a $1 million bond, but a very nice judge lowered that bond yesterday to a paltry $75,000, which is paltry when you are wealthy, as the Couch family is. CNN legal analyst and defense attorney Danny Savalos joins me now, along with former New York prosecutor Dan Schorr. So, Mr. Prosecutor, how on earth does this work? How does a rich lady get a $1 million bond lowered to $75,000 when she has a propensity to jump over the border for no good?
On the surface, it's very surprising. Bail is supposed to primarily get you to return to court, and she fled to Mexico, so you'd think she was a flight risk. In her defense, what they argued successfully is A, it wasn't a violent crime, and B, there are other conditions to get her to return to court. She's an ankle bracelet. They're going to restrict where she can live, and they're taking her passport. There's other restrictions also. So what the court thinks is, okay, the money's not going to keep her from fleeing again, but maybe these other restrictions will, and in lieu of the high bond, they're going to set other severe restrictions to stop her from leaving.
And I think we all have to remember that Ms. Couch went to Mexico and didn't break any laws herself. She wasn't under a probationary restriction. It was her son.
Well, the
whether
act
she
itself,
aided and abetted it is
itself was
other,
a crime, though.
But she's not a flight risk from her own probationary terms or her own. So now she is. Now she is under her own restrictions for travel. But you've got a theory about the whole idea of her son still cooling his heels in the Mexican jail. There's this talk about deportation versus extradition, and you've got this magical theory that he's actually running a clock.
Yeah, this is probably not the place for conjecture, but it's just a thought. What if in this case, often if you're in juvenile court, you're under the jurisdiction of the juvenile court, and yes, he has 10 years of probation, but I believe he may have to be mechanically transferred to adult court, because I don't think you can send a 30-year-old to juvenile hall if he violates probation in Texas. So if he's not mechanically transferred, maybe they ran thinking, if I just run out the clock until I'm over the age of juvenile court jurisdiction, if I haven't already been transferred to adult court, maybe I come back and adult court can't do anything to me. Maybe that was their sort of convoluted idea in running. And procedurally, I'm not entirely sure if that's the case or not in Texas.
They must think that us American folk are pretty dumb. And I'm talking about them thinking their brethren are pretty dumb, because it's not beyond those in Texas jurisprudence, Dan, to elevate him to adult court. Checkmate.
Right, but the adult court would apply to future violations, not to the current violation. The thing that's strange...
Really?
Right, the current violation, he still only faces 120 days in jail under the juvenile violation. The strange thing is even if he's trying to run out the clock, he's doing it in a Mexican facility. So it's not as if he's free during this time. If you get to avoid juvenile probation, but you have to do it by being in a Mexican holding facility,
not bad if it's only 2
like
years compared to 8, which is what he might have been facing in Texas. I still think that they can do something. I think that there's some kind of jerry-rigging that you can do to work him into a different system. Maybe it's the...
I think it's for future violations.
Only futures. You don't think that they can do something with the current violation of probation?
Not unless he's in adult court if he runs out the clock.
Well, Mothers Against Drunk Driving want this whole
theory.
thing moved to adult court. They want the whole process. They've circulated a petition. We'll have to continue this conversation tomorrow. Flat out of time on this. But man, just the thought that she gets to walk. It's very frustrating for a lot of people.
Well, she'll be back in court.
She will indeed. Danny Savalos and Dan Schorr, thank you for that.